Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Kurtuliki. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, Finding Function in a Dysfunctional World. We just had a podcast, Christina and I, before we came on to do the podcast, and you should have heard what we were talking about. We had a good time, and we're having Christine Capella on today. Christine, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so humbled and honored to really be here.
Well, don't be so humble and honored. It's just a little podcast. But anyway, thank you very much, seriously, for the kind words. We're gonna have a great conversation. And Christina and I were talking a little while ago, and she was telling me a little bit about her story. And I said, "Stop right there." Isn't that a song? Stop right there. And I said, "I want you to come on to the podcast. And I want you to discuss and talk about what you went through, because Christine, our motto here is to motivate, educate, and inspire. So if you're listening to this 10 years from now, if you're, a boy, a girl, an adult, man or a woman, whatever that is, and we want to inspire you to greatness, be a better version of yourself. So Christine Capella, she's Italian. She's my paisan, okay, is an online transformational coach and speaker. 6 years ago, she was assaulted and had to undergo multiple surgeries. This is amazing to me. 2 facial reconstructive surgeries and 2 spine surgeries, 2 facial reconstructive surgeries. That's just mind-blowing. Using fitness and the principles of fitness, she was able to overcome all obstacles in her life, build her mental toughness, resilience, extremely important resilience today, and confidence. Her mantra is get up and get it done. I like that. Has gone through all of her hardships and knows it can help you too. Christine, welcome to the program. I'm very excited. I'm glad that we were able to speak, a couple of weeks ago when you were telling me your story. And that's when I said, you got to come on, right? So let's go right into it. Let's go into the assault story. I'm just going to sit back and I'm just going to listen now, because I think this is important, because for all of our listeners, we all have obstacles to overcome. And so, Christine has done an amazing job of this. So tell us about the assault story.
Thank you. So 6 years ago, I was assaulted by a stranger who picked me up. And when he picked me up and threw me over his shoulders, he dropped me face first into the concrete. And then when he dropped me, he fell on top of me. So when that happened, I had, like you said, I had multiple injuries to my face.
So you landed directly on your face?
Directly on my face into the concrete. My nails didn't break. There wasn't a scratch on my hand.
Right here.
Not everything. My purse didn't fall off of my arm. It was my entire face into the concrete. And then he fell backwards on me. And in that fall, my neck got crushed as he fell on top of me.
Wow.
So my face, I always say my face was literally left on the cement because my sunglasses shattered on my face. This part of my face right below my nostril completely detached.
Oh my
and then
goodness.
my teeth went through my lip, and my nose was totally shattered, as you can imagine. And I suffered a severe concussion, and then I had post-concussive vertigo. And then I had herniated discs in my neck, and I had bone fragments in my neck. So right away, I had to go first they had to, break my nose and reset it. And then that didn't work.
So Christine, excuse me one second. This is not man-made. This has been broken multiple times and they've had to break it again. I understand that feeling. So
it looks great. You've got a great nose.
Oh, thank you. I think you're the only person in the world who has said that. Oh, we're talking afterwards, because that's really kind of you to say.
But I remember going home from the hospital, to be honest with you, before the surgery. I remember going home after the hospital, and I wasn't able to look at myself in the mirrors at the hospital. They wouldn't let me look at myself. And I got home, and that was the first thing that I did, was look at myself in the mirror. And I was unrecognizable. I didn't even know who I was, just from the amount of damage that had.
What was that like at that moment for you?
I was just so, I was so taken aback. Like I couldn't believe what had happened
Mhm.
in a split second.
Your whole life
It,
just changed in this split second.
my entire life changed in
Mhm.
one flashing moment. And
Mhm.
it was just, it's a feeling that I can't even fully describe. I just remember this sinking feeling. I remember, this pit in my stomach. I just kept looking at myself and I couldn't figure, like, I just was unrecognizable.
Mhm.
And then I had to go through 2 facial reconstructive surgeries. I was out of work for a long time because of the concussion
Mhm.
and the vertigo.
Did you lose your job at that point?
I didn't, I am a teacher, so I didn't lose my job,
Mhm.
thankfully. This happened in May, so it was closer towards the end of the school year. So
Mhm.
I didn't go back, I didn't finish out that school year, and then I had the summer
You
to
had the summer
recover.
to convalesce a little bit and get better.
Right, right. And then I did have to go back in September because I didn't have any more days, but honestly,
Mhm.
like, I wasn't anywhere near fully recovered when I went back in
Mhm.
September. Um, but in that time frame from May when it happened
Mhm.
to September, I had the 2 surgeries. I was going for extensive physical therapy on my
Mhm.
neck. I had to go for vestibular rehab, which is a
Mhm.
special type of
Sure.
therapy for vertigo. But in the process, I was, as you know, with a concussion, you are told to just lay down and not
Do
move,
nothing.
do nothing. And my entire life, my therapy had been fitness. That's how I
Mhm.
had gotten through every obstacle in my life was
Mhm.
through fitness. And now here I am in this position where I can't do anything. I can't use the mode that I use
Mhm.
to get through anything. And I remember the doctors just looking at me and being like, "Are you depressed?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course I'm depressed. Like I need to move my body." And they
So
find, yes, go ahead,
during this
go ahead.
depression, I'm going to back up because
Yeah,
there's a bunch of questions
there's a
that are
lot
going.
going
Yeah,
on. I
there's
get
just a
it.
ton of questions that are going through my mind right now. Tell me, how old were you when this all happened?
All right, so I'm 43. So it was 6 years ago. So
37-ish,
yeah, yeah,
37-ish. That's a tough thing for anybody to go through, especially at that young age. That's when I had my heart attack when I was 37 years
oh my
old. So,
goodness.
wow. So, and so during this time off in the summer, I was going to ask you, you were depressed. What was going through your emotions at that point? What was your mental outlook like?
So, like I said, when I was not able to move my body, like,
Hmm.
and actually like work out,
Hmm.
um, I was feeling like I was losing who I was, and I couldn't
Hmm.
figure out what was going on, and was my life ever going to look the same? And you're having all of those questions go through
You
your
have that
head.
loss of self. You're
Right.
just doubting everything at that point in time in your life,
Doubting
right?
everything. And at that time, my parents, I had to leave New York City. I was staying with my parents. My parents were taking care of me because with vertigo, for anybody that is not familiar with
Mhm.
vertigo, it's like having, the only way I can describe it is that it's like having the drunk spins
Mhm.
24/7. So
Mhm.
I was not stable on my feet. And so I needed to be with my parents. I could not really take care of myself. So
Mhm.
now at that age, I'm 37 and I'm back home with my parents. And it's
You're
like,
on your own for such a long time. Then all of a
right,
sudden you're just back. You're back and you're just like, oh, I don't want to be here, but you have to be here.
right. And listen, I'm so grateful for my parents. Thank goodness for them.
Right.
Like, I don't know what I would do without them. But at the same time, like you said, it's sort of like you're
Right.
losing your independence. You're like,
Right.
what is going on? Am I going to be able to go back to work? Am I going to be able to start working out again? Am I going to be able to live my life? Am I going to be able to? You have all of those questions going through your mind.
Mhm.
And finally, I remember the doctors saying, okay, you can move your body. And I put that in quotation marks because it's not like they were like, okay, go, you can go back to your
Mhm.
regular gym routine. It was like, you can do some slow walking.
Mhm.
And my mom would go for walks with me because again, I
Right.
couldn't really go on my own. And I would start out with a 5 minute, I started out with a 5 minute walk. And that was a massive win for me. I was so excited that I went for a
You're
5 minute
outside,
walk.
you're getting a little vitamin D,
Yes,
you're
yes,
breathing in the fresh air,
yes.
you just feel better about yourself, right?
Right. And I was just proud of myself to actually get up
Mhm.
and get it done. Right. Like I was proud of myself for doing that. And
Right.
then the next day I would go for 6 minutes. And the next day I would go for 7 minutes. And so if you've ever read the book, The Atomic Habits, it's
Yep.
literally that philosophy where you're just getting 1% better every single
You
day.
gain that momentum, and each day that momentum just builds upon it.
You
And
got
for
it.
all of our listeners today, this is important. Christine went through a tragedy, and I think that we're going to call this podcast Tragedy to Triumph. I was
I
thinking
love
about that. I wrote that down. Here it is. Write that down. It's Tragedy to Triumph. And you can get out of anything that you're in right now. And all my listeners, I'm big into this. And no matter who you are, and 1% better every day, every week, whatever that looks like, you gain that momentum, right, Christine? And then the next thing you know, you're just on your way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that depression, once that comes in and what you went through, you're probably asking yourself, why me at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You do. And you ask yourself that, why me? What did I do to cause this? Like,
Mhm.
what have I put out into the universe to
Mhm.
have this
Mhm.
come? Like
Right.
you start asking yourself all of those questions. But then when I could start, like I said, for me, movement is everything. Movement is medicine, movement is therapy, movement releases that negative energy. I'm a firm believer that movement is that you're moving forward, right? Like in
Mhm.
life, you always want to
Right.
move forward. And so movement is the actual act of
Of
moving
moving forward.
forward.
Right.
So that for me, it was like I was moving forward. I was taking control of my life again. I was taking the steps to get to where I needed
Right.
to go to.
That was going to be my question. What did that movement mean to you? You were gaining control of your
Right.
life, because I'm going to say that your self-confidence was shot then at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, we're all identified by our facial features.
Mhm.
So it's one thing to age and have that taken away with age, right? Like, that that's going
Are
to
you saying
happen.
I'm old, Christine?
No, I'm not saying that you're old, but like we all know that that's a process in life. As you age, your facial features will change. But for your facial features to be stripped away from you in one moment, it's like, what just happened? What happened? And there was all of that going on. And then the fact that I just couldn't move the way that I could move, I couldn't work. So you ask yourself, why me? And you start to have a bit of a pity party. And I needed to get myself out of that pity party.
How
And
was
it
that
was,
pity party? How long did it last, and what did that mean for you?
so my mentality is you have your pity party because, right, like the feelings are valid. I never want to say like you
You don't
can't
want to
feel sad.
invalidate your feelings, but you got to
Right.
control them at one point,
But you got to
right?
control them. Like you can't stay stuck in that
Right.
place. Like that pity party,
Mhm.
you have the pity party and then you snap yourself out of it and you get up and you get it done and you keep on moving and you move forward.
Right.
So the pity party lasted for a little bit. I would probably say that it lasted a good like week, 2 weeks when I was
That's
still
really good, because some people can get into what you went to. It could be months and months, could
Yeah.
lead into a year, where you were strong mentally. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But that is something where you were strong and you were saying, all right, I got to overcome this, right?
Right. But I think also for me, I've always I've had this healthy obsession with being the greatest version of myself and having these comebacks.
Did you
So,
always have that, Christine?
I,
Because you're driven. We can see that. And
yeah,
that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm
Because
trying to
sometimes
think
that
back,
today
like,
could be like persona non grata. You can't be driven, but it seems to me that you were always driven.
I'm trying to think back to like when that was like really instilled in me.
Right. When
It
did,
was,
and who instilled that into you?
I think it
Right.
was probably one of, okay, so there's a few people that like I've seen the drive-in.
Mhm.
I've been raised by very strong willed women. My mom, I watched my mom go through lung cancer where she had a
Mhm.
5% chance of living.
I'm sorry to hear
Like,
that. Yeah, that's
and
great that she
it,
made it. Right.
she made it, and I watched her go through everything. My grandmother was my mom's mom, tough as nails, like nothing took her down, like so those were my role models growing up. But then I also think I went through some bad breakups, and it was like, oh no, I'm not going to let these men like get over on me. So I'm going to have the comeback. And there was that like drive,
Mhm.
if I have to really go back in time.
Mhm.
So I sort of faced this in a similar way. Like it was this healthy obsession with having this comeback. I was like,
Right.
I am not going to let my assaulter win, because if I stay in this place,
Right.
who wins? Him or me? He
They
wins.
win, they
And
win, and there's no reason to stay there, and there's
no,
no reason to do that. So again,
no.
all of our listeners, when Christina and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, when I invited her onto the podcast, again, we motivate, we educate, inspire. I mean, she was knocked down, literally and figuratively in life, and she was not going to let anybody or any situation or anything keep her down. She decided very quickly, which I'm proud of you. I mean, that's great to get up and get moving and say, you know what, it's time to get out there and claim my stake in life again. I love that. So you
Yeah.
just got out of that, and now you have experiences in life where you can call upon. Isn't it interesting when you have an experience in life where you overcome something? What you went through was horrific. You got your face smashed. And I mean, we can say that now and we can smile at that,
Right.
right? You got your face smashed, but then you're like, this is all life has to throw at me.
Well, it's funny because the actual assault was horrible. And then having to go through those 2 surgeries was horrible. And I thought that was like the end of it, right?
Mhm.
I thought I was done. And then all of a sudden, now 2 years ago, all the pain in my neck starts flaring up,
Mhm.
and I'm told that I have to go for spine surgery. And I was devastated, but really, I was prepared
Mhm.
for the spine surgery from the assault. Then that first spine surgery that I had didn't work.
Mhm.
And now a year after it, so now it's really a year ago because I'm still in my recovery process.
Mhm.
I'm told that surgery didn't work. Now you need to go in for a double spine surgery. It's a 10-hour surgery, and we're doing this all over again. So every single time it got a little bit worse, but every single time I was prepared because it had gradually gotten worse. And so now every single time something comes at me, I'm like, I'm not afraid anymore. Like I've already been through the worst. What else do you have for me? And I know that whatever comes my way, it's not going to take me down.
Yeah.
If that didn't take me down, nothing is.
Right. So what I put down here when you were talking before you said fear, I said no fear. I said no fear, and circled it. No fear. And you're fearless, and you just say, okay, this is what needs to be done. Let's get up and let's get it done, and let's move forward from there.
Yeah.
So what was it like to go back into the classroom when you went back to school? What was that like for you going back to work?
Oh, so after the assault, there's like a lot of pieces there. I changed schools. So now I'm
Mhm.
in a new school.
Mhm.
I'm changing positions. And I know that sounds really interesting being a teacher, because it's like, how are you changing positions? I had always been a general education teacher by myself.
Mhm.
And at this new school, I was getting put into what's called an ICT classroom. So I was the general ed teacher and there's a special ed teacher, and half the class is gen ed and the other half is special ed. So there were a lot of changes for me, but it ended up being a blessing because I was not fully steady, I guess is like the best word that so it was nice to have another adult in the room with me. So that when I was exhausted, because it was very exhausting to go back and my vertigo would act up and I'd be in the classroom. It was nice to have that support. So it ended up all working out exactly the way that it was supposed to work out. And I ended up getting the most incredible co-teacher. But it wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it was easy. It was difficult, but at the end of the day, I had no choice. I had no sick days left. I had exhausted. If you know anything about teaching, for those of you that are listening, our sick days roll over and they roll up into a bank of days that you can save to retire on. I used every single day, right up to the very last one. So I was starting that school year with no days. So I had no choice but to go back to work, and I had no choice but to be in that classroom. And I had to push through. That was it.
Because if you don't push through, the on the other side is, I don't want to say failure, but it's not where you want to be in life.
Right.
So this whole resilience, you got tons of resilience. It's like life knocks you down, and it reminds me of my favorite football team. Okay, New York Giants, and there was a linebacker back in the 80s, Lawrence Taylor, and when he made it to the Hall of Fame, he had said in his speech that it's okay for a Hall of Famer to get knocked down. It's okay for a Hall of Famer to lose. It's okay for a Hall of Famer to be brought to his knees. Okay, it's not okay for a Hall of Famer to stay there, because a Hall of Famer gets up every single time. If you get knocked down, the old adage is if you get knocked down 7 times, you get back up 8 times. And you say, here I am, and I'm ready to go again. So you're that Hall of Famer, believe it or not, and you are a Hall of Famer. And so you keep getting up. Talk about resilience during all of this.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess resilience is my superpower.
No doubt, without even, it's not a guess. It is your superpower.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But honestly, I feel like a lot of that comes from fitness. And the thing about fitness that people don't realize is that it's so intertwined in life. Because if you're doing a 30-minute workout, if you're doing a 60-minute workout, you have to overcome so many obstacles, so many struggles in that amount of time, that short amount of time. And you have to keep pushing through. And so that builds your mental toughness, that builds your strength. So now when life comes at you, you can use that same mentality. And you can say, okay, you want to know what I did in my workout? I pushed through that hard moment. I didn't give up then. So why am I going to give up now when life comes at me? And it's because it's the same exact thing. It might be a little bit tougher. It's going to last a little longer. It might hurt a little bit more, but you can push through it. And so that's where my attitude really has come from. And I've used fitness to build all of that.
That's good, because I know that Arnold Schwarzenegger had said that when he was working out, every rep and every set that he did, he had that same attitude, and he was always smiling about it, because that at the end he would have, he pictured himself as that 6-time Olympian. He pictured himself as that pro, and he did exactly the same thing. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit now. You mentioned your mom. Talk to me about your dad. Ooh.
Yeah. So my dad is the sweetest, kindest human being ever. My mom is the my mom and I are very similar. My mom is the bull. My mom's a bull.
Yeah, watch
and then-
out that an Italian woman in the family is the bull. My
Yeah.
partner here, he's married to an Italian woman, and she's a bull. So,
Yeah.
he's saying yes, by the way.
We usually are. We usually are.
Yes, indeed. He's like, oh my God, I got a headache now just listening to this conversation. So what did your dad give you during this whole resilience thing?
So my dad just gave me so much support and love. I mean, both my parents did, but honestly, like I've gotten my love for fitness from my dad, because my dad, I would see my dad, well, I wouldn't see him necessarily growing up, but he would wake up at 4 a.m. and go running every single morning,
Really?
probably until, yeah, really, right up until I want to say 67, maybe even 70.
Really?
Now he gets up and like he walks. He can't run as much anymore. And I follow suit. I'm up at 4 a.m. I work out every single day at 4 a.m. just like he does. So like that's where I get that from 100%.
Wow, that's amazing. So, you get a little older, you can't run as much. Your knees get a little,
Right.
your knees are a little bit, I had COVID in December. And so I had to cut it down. I went for a couple of miles the other day. I want to get it back up to 4 miles. Talk to me about confidence. What is, did the working out and the physical fitness bring back a lot of that confidence? Did you use anything else besides physical fitness to bring about your confidence?
So confidence is an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've always had confidence in certain areas of my life, and then in other areas, I haven't had a lot of confidence. So I'm going to talk about both for you.
Oh, because let me tell you, my partner just, but I'm going to tell you that I was going to ask you, what do you have low confidence? And so you figured that out, that I was going to do that. So you might as well say, let's just go there, because old Dr. Dan's going to ask that question.
Yeah, I figured that's what was going to happen. I'm like, I'm just going to give them both sides. So because I have overcome so many obstacles, my confidence is built, right? Like I know I can overcome anything that comes my way. I've done it. I've done it once. I've done it twice. I've done it 3 times, right? Like you're not stopping me. Like there's no stopping me. In my opinion, that's my personal feeling. You're not able to stop me. I don't care what you try to do. You're not stopping me. And that's because I've overcome everything in life that was meant to break me. So I think that's part of confidence, right? Is overcoming those obstacles. I think that fitness builds that, like that consistency. I think
agree.
When you do something repeatedly over and over again, that builds your confidence. So when it comes to overcoming struggles, when it comes to overcoming pain, injuries, taking on new endeavors, like what you're seeing, everything that I'm doing on social media and like pivoting, like I have tons of confidence there. Have I failed a bunch? 100%.
It's okay to fail fast and learn.
Yeah. And I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm like speaking from a place of perfection by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like I failed and I'm still failing and I'm going to keep failing and it's okay. No big deal. The area where I've had low confidence, which nobody, people struggle to understand this with me, is dating. I have allowed, let me make sure that I word this correctly. I have made poor choices in who I have chosen to date. And I could sit here and tell you that every man I dated was I made the choice. I made the choice to be in those relationships. And so what's a common denominator in all those in all those relationships, me. So I had to take a good hard look at
Right.
myself and figure out what was going on with me and why was I choosing to stay in these situations that were actually hurting me.
Mhm.
And it was because I had low confidence when
Mhm.
it came to dating and when it came to men. And so I had to take a step back. I had to really work on myself the same way that I did with overcoming all the obstacles in my life and overcoming pain and the injuries. That those same tactics I
Mhm.
needed to apply to myself.
What did you specifically do to overcome this? What was that you did? You mean you worked on your physical body, you worked on your mental body, what specifically did you do?
So, I mean, physically, I have been into fitness since I was 21. So that's
Mhm.
just like that working
That's
on my
just who
body.
you are. That's what
just,
you do.
yeah, that's just what I do. That is not a part of me building my confidence in dating. That's now just who I am, like you said. But to really build my confidence in no longer allowing the people in my life that don't belong there and being strong enough to set boundaries, right? Like
Right.
being confident enough to set boundaries and live by those boundaries. I had to figure out, one, what are my boundaries?
Right.
Why, right? Like you have to figure out what are your boundaries? What are your
Correct.
non-negotiables?
Right.
And so
you speak in my language, right?
you got to go down to the basics, like the bare bone basics. What are your boundaries? What are you no longer going to tolerate? When that does happen, you need to have the confidence to walk away. And the problem that I had in the past was all the red flags would be going off.
You didn't do it. You didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything. I was allowing it to continue because one, I didn't have the confidence. And two, the problem with having a good heart is that you assume that everybody else has
Has a good
like
heart
you.
too. And they have your best interest in mind.
Right. Because you would never do that to somebody else. Like when you're built like that, you're like, I would never treat somebody like that. How could
Correct.
somebody do that to me? And it's very hard to like wrap your brain
Right.
around it. So it was a lot of like just doing that internal work and really digging deep into why was I allowing it,
Mhm.
setting my boundaries and staying firm on my
Mhm.
boundaries. And so that's now the place that I'm at.
So if you could be so kind enough, can you share with us a couple of few non-negotiables, not only with dating, but in life? What are some,
Yeah.
what are a couple of few non-negotiables that you have?
So one of my big ones is I don't care what you say. Like your words, honestly, like your words mean nothing to me.
Mhm.
Your actions are going to prove everything. So a non-negotiable now is your words have to match your actions. And that goes for friendships, that goes for
Right.
relationships, that's everything. And that's a standard. And this is the other thing. I always like to state this. I have to hold myself to those
The
standards
same
too, right? Like
standards.
I cannot be putting those standards on somebody else if I'm not living it. So I make sure that I'm living it. And then I make sure that people rise up to me. I'm no longer leveling down.
You rise people up. That's
Right.
fine. That's
Right.
great. Two
So
more
yes,
non-negotiables.
two more non-negotiables. My time is important. My time is important.
Don't waste Christine's time.
Don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. And again, don't say that you're going to do something and then you don't do it, or don't say that you're going to show up at a certain time and you don't show up at a certain time. Again, it's like that. The words and the actions all need to align. It really comes down to that.
Mhm.
And a big one for me is, a lot of people choose a word for the year, right? For the year going in.
Right. Yes.
And so I did choose a word for myself, but then I also was like, well, you know what? I need to choose a word for the people that I allow into my life.
What was the word for you?
The word, the word for me is patience. I need to work on having patience.
And what is the
That's
word
my
to
word.
let people into your life?
They need to have integrity. Integrity is huge.
Right. That is huge. I'm
Huge.
just agreeing with you 100% because,
Yeah.
don't tell me, show me, right? That type
Yep.
of a thing. If you want to
Yeah.
be in my life, let's spend some quality time. I don't want to talk about whatever nonsensical stuff. And
Yeah.
I'll be patient with you as long as you are an integrous-based type of an individual and
Yeah.
you're good to your word. So they're all kind of intertwined with each other, right? That's what
They
it
really
seems like.
are.
They really all come together.
And the
So
integrity piece for me has a lot to do with like no lying and cheating and like how are you treating other people? Like I really focus on that too. Like for me, it's a really big deal. And I'm going to use dating as an example, right? When you go out on a date with somebody, they're going to give you the very best of themselves, right? And they're going to give you the best side of themselves.
and if they don't, it's over right then and
Right,
there.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's an issue. But how are you treating the server?
Yeah.
How are you treating the people that are working in the restaurant that are cleaning? Like that to me shows so much. That
About
shows
a
your
person.
integrity. Yeah, about a person, because
Right.
it's really about how you treat others.
Right.
And so I watch all of that really carefully.
Yeah. So Christine, I just looked at the time. We're almost done here, believe it or not.
Oh
Boy,
my goodness.
right? You feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, right. That went so
So
fast.
it goes fast, right? So I do have a couple of more questions, and
Okay.
I think we're going to have you back on if you're game to come back
I
on.
would love to. I would love
Yeah,
to.
that
I would be
I'm
honored.
thinking of some ideas with that. So you're a speaker, right? You do a lot of speaking engagements. Tell me about your speaking engagements. Do you like it? Do you
Yeah.
dislike it? Were you afraid to go up in front of the people? As you can see, I'm a little bit humble, and I have a little tough time being in front of a crowd. So, maybe I can learn a thing or two from you. So tell us about your speaking.
So it's so funny because I never intended on being a speaker. It was not a dream of mine. In college, I got a D in public speaking.
No way.
Yes, I got a D. I hated the class. I was terrified of it. And it's something that makes me very uncomfortable, which nobody understands. Everybody's like, you're a teacher, you're in front of kids all day. I'm like, I'm in front of 7-year-olds that usually have like their finger up their nose. Like they're not paying attention to me. They're not judging me. They're not even listening to me half the time. Right. But talking in front of adults is a totally different story. And I was terrified. But again, it's one of those things. I had to build my confidence. It started with repetition. I had to overcome those fears. I had to keep telling myself that I could do it. I failed a bunch, right? And
Right.
that's okay. Not every time was perfect, and not every time is going to be perfect, but I'm doing it. And every time I do it, I'm so proud of myself, and I celebrate myself. Maybe nobody else is, but I am celebrating the heck out of myself every time I do it. And I love it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's great. When's your next speaking engagement? Do you
So
have one scheduled yet?
I actually do. I have one, not this upcoming weekend. It's next weekend, April 2nd. I'm doing one at a Pilates studio, and it's going to be talking again about like fitness and resilience and
And
overcoming
anybody can
obstacles.
go, or just the Pilates people are going?
And anybody can come. Anybody can come. It's in Brooklyn.
All right, when we get off, you'll give me the name, and I'll put
Yeah.
that into the show notes.
Yeah.
So maybe people can come to see you. So
Yeah. And I'm also planning a few events myself. So things are moving.
I
Yeah.
like that. I have ideas with that too. I always have ideas. So, Christine, this has been an awesome conversation. We've been conversing for hours now. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface, which is good. So I'm going to ask you to come back on. Where can people find you?
You can find me over on Instagram at Christine Capella. And I always tell people my favorite place to be is in the DMs. I love connecting with my followers. I love hearing their stories. If anybody is going through a struggle and needs help, I love talking to people about it. So like, honestly, don't be afraid to reach out to me and connect with me, and we can just chat about whatever you're going through.
Yeah, I like that. That is great, because Christine's a transformational coach and she's a speaker. As you can see, she knows her stuff, and I recommend her 100%. So please go over to Christine Capella, follow her on Instagram. I recommend that you do that right now. Stop the podcast now. Go. We're going to wait. Okay, welcome back. So I'm glad that you did that. So follow Christine, and I do. So, Christine, thank you very much for coming in and sharing and being vulnerable. You're an amazing human being inside and out. And this is just a great story. We're going to have you come back on. And I want to thank all of our listeners for coming in today. We have the best of the best of the best. And Christine, wow, this was just an incredible conversation. Be the best versions of yourself, everybody. Christine, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story and motivating, educating, and inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, and we're going to discuss another podcast in 2 seconds. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care.